Hope you're doing well. This is my long-term review of the DR650. I've had this bike since 2020. It is a 2019 and I put 33,000 miles on it. And I'm going to tell you everything that I like about it, what I don't like about it, and compare it to some other bikes and go from there. Overall, I'm happy with it. Let's just get that out of the way. Overall, I think it's a special bike. For starters, let's go into what is broken and what all I've had to change, like the basic maintenance that it took to get it to 33,000 miles. 5 front sprockets, change those every 5,000 miles. 1 chain, it would have made it to 33,000 miles, I'm pretty sure, but I went ahead and changed it to 22 because I was going on a long trip. Changed out the rear sprocket, 6-ish rear tires, 3-ish front tires, I wasn't keeping track. I changed out the air filter, I changed out the rear cush drive hubs with new rubbers. The cam chain tensioner gasket did blow on me, I rechanged it. 2 sets of brake pads front and rear. I changed out the brake lines and the brake fluid. I don't really think I needed to, the bike was fine, but it's a good idea to do that. And then I did blow the fork seals at around 33,000 miles. So that was very recently that blew. And that was after a whole lot of off-road use and abuse, so your mileage may vary. And then 2 batteries. Probably could have made it with just 1 change of battery, but I left the keys on. And 1 set of spark plugs, and then I've had to adjust the valves twice. And a few fuel filters, and I think that's it. So next, after 33,000 miles, the bike still runs great. I do have a little oil leak at the very top of the head, but that's going to be an easy fix. Just switch out an odor end. And other than that, it still runs just like it did from the showroom floor. I recently did the ProCycle Jet Kit. That really opened up the carburetor, by the way. I highly recommend you do that as soon as your warranty goes out on the bike. And when I opened up the carburetor, it looked brand new. So that was great. I mentioned that I changed out the fork seals at 33,000 miles. I would probably recommend going ahead and doing that at around 25-ish thousand miles because that oil was kind of dark and grimy. But it probably would have been fine. Mine blew at 33. The wheel bearings, I have not changed those yet, and I have not been particularly kind to them. I've crossed a lot of water, and they seem fine to this point. So, you know, expect 30 to 50,000 miles out of your wheel bearings, unless you're just constantly doing river crossing. So that's another good thing. Valve adjustments, they have been spot on every time to the last one. The last one, I forget if they were tight or loose, but they were one of the two, and I did have to adjust them. Other than that, absolute dream machine, no issues, it's never let me down, and I'd take off on it right now and go all the way to Alaska pretty calmly. Alright, let's go over what I love about this bike now and why I went with this bike over some of the competitors. For starters, this bike's extremely cheap. I bought it for $6,600, brand new in 2020. It was a 2019 model. I think now they're around $6,900 brand new, and you can find a used one for around $3,000 or $4,000 in pretty good shape. Compare that to, say, a KTM or a Tanneray, you're going to be looking at $10,000 or $12,000, so roughly double the price. Second, not only are they cheap, but they're extremely reliable. Cheap doesn't necessarily mean poor quality here. These bikes are cheap because they've been manufactured the exact same way since 1996, and they don't have to make anything really fancy or special to put these things together. It's kind of just on autopilot at this point in time, and that's a good thing. So it's an extremely cheap machine, it's an extremely reliable machine, and it's also a simple machine that's easy to work on, which to me is a huge benefit. Working on a bike, if you send it to a shop, that's going to cost you at least $100 an hour, which makes riding a whole lot more expensive because there's all kinds of little things that pop up on motorcycles that you need to fix. And every single one of those little things is going to turn into, from being just a $20 job, it's now going to become a $100 job, and your bike is going to have to stay at the shop while it gets fixed. So it being a simple bike that is easy to work on yourself, it means the world to me. The fourth thing that I think makes this bike truly special, and something that I did not know when I bought it, is that this is probably the most customizable motorcycle in the world. It has an absolutely wonderful aftermarket community that makes modding this thing extremely easy. And it also starts out as this perfect blank slate to kind of go into whichever direction that you want it to go. If you want to turn it into a supermoto machine, so be it. If you want to leave it as a dual sport, so be it. If you want to turn it into a pretty awesome dirt bike, so be it. If you want to turn it into an adventure touring bike, it's easy to do. And you can do it in any shade that you want in between. On the specifics, I've talked about how customizable this bike is. Let's go over like some finer details and some things that I don't love about the bike. The stock suspension is not bad. Everybody like absolutely berates on it, but it's not great either. It's soft and it's really nice for just cruising around slowly, which some people will actually like better than a modified suspension. But if you're trying to go extremely quickly, it's not quite everything that you're going to want. You're going to want to upgrade that, but the bike is so cheap that upgrading it's not that big of a deal. The ground clearance isn't quite as high as I would like, but it's also a beneficial factor because the seat height is not quite as high as some of the others. So that's a plus and a minus. I'm a little taller, so I don't mind a slightly higher seat height. But for other people, that's going to be a plus. I think overall it is a plus on the bike. The stock handlebars are made of Swiss cheese. So the first time you drop the bike, they're probably going to bend. Which I think is a negative. I think they should have been made a little bit stronger. And the original foot pegs are mounted on these rubber grommets, so when you stand up they go like this. It's an easy fix, but it's one of those weird things of why do you have to do that? Why does it come with rubber grommets in it? But like I said, it's easy to fix. Other than that, I don't really have any major complaints about the stock bike. I think the stock bike in and of itself is a great dual sport for just cruising around, for carrying a passenger, for riding around the city or riding around the woods. I think it's absolutely wonderful and doesn't really need a whole lot of modifications in its stock form to be an absolute blast. And like I said, it's not too hard to kit the bike out to make it truly what you want and need. Power-wise, it makes close to 40 horses and it weighs around 360 pounds. Double check me on those numbers. I'll put those up in the screen. It's adequate. It's not extremely fast, but it's definitely fast enough. And it's a lot of torquey download power. So when you're doing hill climbs and things like that, you're not going to run out of power. Its bike is extremely comfortable, doing everything from dirt roads to riding through the woods to riding county roads to riding on highways. The only spot I would say this bike is uncomfortable on is the interstate, and it's not even completely out of water in the interstate. It's out of water on long stretches of the interstate and in particularly fast sections of the interstate. And I say this because every interstate's not exactly the same. Where this bike is kind of a fish out of water is when the fast lane is going about 90 miles an hour and the slow lane is going 80 miles an hour. At that point in time, I want a little more bike. When the slow lane's going around 70, 72, this bike can cruise at that speed pretty comfortably just about all day, and it's not extremely uncomfortable from a human standpoint either. The sweet spot for this bike is going to be anywhere between 65 and that 25 miles an hour. It's actually good slower than that too when you're cruising on roads. One thing that I really love about this bike too is it kind of has a laid-back personality, which I think is a plus. Some people are not going to think it's a plus. Still plenty fast and it still has plenty of power, but it has a laid-back nature, if that makes any sense. And I really like its laid-back nature. Alright, so let's compare it to some of the other bikes in its class. Let's say the Tanneray 700. You're looking at a bike that weighs 100 pounds more than I think we're kind of at a point of diminishing return on horsepower unless you are just racing. I don't think you're really ever going to be wanting more horsepower than this bike unless you're in that situation where the slow lane's going 80 miles an hour and the fast lane's going 90, and you have to be in that situation for longer than an hour. I can cruise on this bike on the interstate for 3 or 4 hours and I'm perfectly comfortable. It's not bad at all. But everywhere else, 65 and under, the DR650 is extremely comfortable. And off-road, it's going to be a lot better than the Tanneray because it weighs almost 100 pounds less. I'm going to wrap this thing up because I've been rambling for a long time. If you have the money, I think the KTM might be the better bike in just about every single way than the DR650. I've never ridden the KTM, I'm just going by what I've read and seen. Except for the fact that it's twice the price, less reliable, less customizable, and harder to work on yourself. So you kind of have to measure those things. You know, is that a priority to you over absolute raw performance? And you got to weigh that up for yourself. I think for all the other bikes right now, besides the KTM, I think the DR is the best. And I think the DR is the best bang for your buck. And I think everybody who's not trying to just go fast, extremely fast. Yeah, but I think that's it. Everybody who's happy with just going fast and doesn't have to go extremely fast is going to be completely happy with the DR. Everybody who likes working on their own bike is going to be more happier with the DR. Everybody who loves just simple old school machines is going to be happier with the DR. And everybody who enjoys not paying twice the price is going to be happier with the DR. And also, if you're going, you know, into the absolute middle of nowhere by yourself on a machine that you want to get you back home safely, I think the answer has to be right now the DR or the XR. Those are the two most proven machines currently out there. And I think the DR is a slightly more reliable machine than the XR. And there's some reasons for that, but I'm not going to get into that right now. Overall, if you're looking at the DR and you're at all on the fence, absolutely buy it. Hope y'all enjoyed this review, and if you stuck around this long, you know, hit that subscribe button and have a great day. Take care.